Hello lovely viewers, you are most welcome to our channel Poetry Online. In this video, we shall be presenting to you the summary, analysis, major themes and characters of the book Death and the King's Horseman by Wole Soyinka. Kindly subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to get updates on all our new videos. Once again, let us assure you of a very interesting discussion. Get ready for this lesson. This play, Death and the King's Horseman, is written by Wole Soyinka based on a real incident that took place in Nigeria during the British colonial rule. The horseman of a Yoruba king was prevented from committing ritual suicide by the colonial authorities. In addition to the British intervention, Wole Soyinka calls the horseman's own conviction towards suicide into question, posing a problem that throws off the community's balance. Wole Soyinka wrote the play Death and the King's Horseman in Cambridge, where he was a fellow at Churchill's College during his political exile from Nigeria. He has also written a preface to the play, explaining what he sees as the greatest misconception in understanding the play. In particular, he says the play should be considered a clash of culture. Death and the King's Horseman is built on a true story. According to Yoruba tradition, the death of the king must be followed by the ritual death of the king's horseman, as well as the king's dog and horse, because the spirit of the king's horseman is essential in helping the chief spirit ascend to the afterlife. Otherwise, the king's spirit will wander the earth and bring harm to the Yoruba people. The first half of the play documents the process of this ritual, with a potent life-living figure Ellison living out his final days in celebration before the ritual process begins. At the last minute, the local British colonial ruler, Simon Wilkins, intervenes. The suicide is viewed as barbaric and illegal by the British authorities. In the play, the result for the community is catastrophic, as the breaking of the ritual means the disruption of cosmic order of the universe, and thus the well-being and future of the collectivity is in doubt. The community blames Ellison as much as Wilkins, assessing him of being too attached to the earth to fulfill his spiritual obligations. Events lead to tragedy when Ellison's son, Olunde, who was returned to Nigeria from studying medicine in Europe, takes on the responsibility of his father and commits ritual suicide in his place so as to restore the honor of his family and the order of the universe. Consequently, Ellison kills himself, condemning his soul to a degraded existence in the next world. In addition, the dialogue of the natives suggests that this may have been insufficient and that the world is now adrift and void. Death and the King's Horseman demonstrates an innovative use of English by creating a text that dives into the world of Yoruba proverbs. Almost every character in Death and the King's Horseman at some point uses traditional Yoruba proverbs. Through his vast knowledge on Yoruba proverbs, Wole Soyinka is able to endow his play with a strong Yoruba sentiment. Characters usually employ Yoruba proverbs primarily as a means of augmenting their opinions and persuading others to take their point of view. The praise singer gets annoyed with Ellison for his decision to take a new wife and tries to dissuade him because the man approaches a brand new life. He forgets the long faithful mother of his children. Similarly, Iyaloja tries to admonish Ellison against his early attachment and stay true to his ritual upon which the good of his community depend. He said, "Eating the awusa nut is not so difficult as drinking water afterwards." Another common way in which Wole Soyinka uses proverb is with Ellison. Ellison himself uses several proverbs in order to convince his peers that he is going to comply with the ritual and thus join his ancestors. The kite makes for the wide spaces, and the wind creeps up behind its tail. Can the kite say less than thank you? The quicker, the better. The final way in which proverbs appear in the play is when Iyaloja and the praise singer harass Ellison while he is in prison for failing to complete his role within the rituals. What we have no intention of eating should not be held up to the nose. Let's now discuss the major characters in the play, starting with Ellison Oba. Ellison Oba is a man of enormous vitality. He was the chief horseman of the dead king. As the king's companion, Ellison enjoyed a luxurious life of rich food and fine clothing, the rewards of a man of his position. He enjoyed that life, and now that the king has been dead for a month and is ready for burial, Ellison is expected to complete the horseman's duty and commit ritual suicide. The play opens on the evening of Ellison's last day of life. At midnight, he will die. He says repeatedly that he is ready to give his life and he knows the importance of fulfilling his responsibility. But Ellison, well known for his many sexual conquests, sees a young woman of great beauty and demands that he be allowed to take her to bed before he dies. Just after leaving the wedding chamber, Ellison begins his passage into the next world and dances in a hypnotic dreamlike trance. But when Simon's men come to arrest Ellison, he couldn't summon the strength to resist them and continue through the transitional state into the next world. Instead, he leaves and brings shame to himself and chaos to the land. Amusa. Amusa is a sergeant of the Native Administrative Police, a black African working for the white British colonialists. His position is a difficult one. He is not trusted by Simon Wilkins, his superior, because Simon cannot conceive of an African as being intelligent or honest, and is no longer trusted by the villagers because he works with the whites to enforce the laws of the strangers. Amusa was converted to Christianity 2 years before the play begins, but he still feels profound respect for native beliefs. He will not speak with Simon as long as Simon is wearing the Egungun garment. But Amusa does not hesitate to follow Simon's orders and arrest Ellison to prevent his death. The Bride. The bride does not speak at all during the play. Already engaged to Iyaloja's son, the bride is seen by Ellison and taken to bed by him. No one asks for a consent. When Ellison is arrested, she sits silently beside him, and upon his death, she closes his eyes in fulfillment of a wifely duty. Iyaloja. Iyaloja is the mother of the market, the spokesperson and leader of the women of the village. She is the voice of wisdom in the play, the one who can see Ellison's charms to the danger he represents when he swears from his responsibility. When Ellison asks for a young woman as his bride, Iyaloja has no choice but to hand her over, even though the young woman is engaged to Iyaloja's own son. Iyaloja knows of the power of the forces of the universe, and she understands that refusing the request of a man who is already touched by the waiting fingers of our departed will set this world adrift. But she warns Ellison not to leave a cursed seed behind him, and she reminds him of her warning when she brings Olunde's body to Ellison's cell. Simon Wilkins. Simon Wilkins is a district officer charged by maintaining order in one of the districts of the British colony of Nigeria. He has no interest in learning the culture of the people. He and his wife, Jane, socialize only with other Europeans who have tried to transplant as much as their own food, clothing, and manners as they can maintain their own style of life in a foreign country. Simon is sure of himself and of his life and easily dismisses anything he does not understand. When he learns that Ellison intends to commit suicide on the night of the prince's visit to the district, Simon uses his authority to stop Ellison, not because he does not want any commotion to disrupt the prince's visit. Jane. Jane is the wife of Simon Wilkins, the British district officer. Although she shares most of Simon's superior attitude, she is, in Olunde's words, somewhat more understanding than her husband. Unlike Simon, she can sense that Simon has offended Amusa and Joseph their house servant. Although she agrees with Simon that the native customs and beliefs are horrible, she has no active role in the main events of the play, but serves as a sounding board for Simon as he thinks through. The praise singer. The praise singer is also known as Oluhuniyo. He accompanies Ellison on his last journey, singing and chanting. He is devoted to Ellison and sees into the darkest corners of his heart, almost like a conscience. He voices Ellison's hesitation and questions about his passage into the next world. As Ellison enters his trance to begin his transition, the praise singer monitors his progress. He can sense Ellison moving away from him and calls him back in a ritual repetitive chant. Once Ellison is arrested and brought to his cell, the praise singer is not seen nor heard again. Let's now take a summary of all the acts of the book, starting with Act 1. Ellison and his drummers and praise singers enter the market. The vendors are packing up their stall and getting ready to go home. The praise singer asks Ellison why he moves with such haste and asks him if he is going to meet his bride. If he has forgotten the mother of his children, Ellison laughs and says he must see his woman because he has neglected them. The praise singer wonders if there will be anyone like himself on the other side. Ellison urges him to remain at his side while they are in this world. The praise singer calls out that Ellison's name will be like the sweet berry and the world will never spit it out. Ellison tells him to come along to visit his woman and that he looks forward to smelling them and feeling them. The praise singer sings of the time when white slavers came and took the best of their race, the mind and muscles of our Tories. Despite this, he sings, our world has never ranged from its true course. Ellison says the world will not leave its course during his time. Ellison begins to speak of the not I bed. First, he starts to dance, and the drummers play along. He chants the story in an easy, amiable manner while he speaks to the woman, including Iyaloja. In Ellison's story, death comes calling, and the farmer, the hunter, and the courtesan and others say, not I, when death seeks them. The refrain is even heard among the beasts of the forest and among the gods themselves. But when that same not I bird comes to Ellison, he is not afraid and rolls out his welcome mat. The bird flies away and will not be heard in his lifetime. Ellison concludes, my rein is loosened. I am master of my fate. He will not turn aside or delay. The woman asks if anything will hold him back, and he says no. He goes to keep his friend and master company. They did great things together, but now, as Ellison explains, life has an end, a life that will outlive fame, and friendship begs another name. Because life is honor, it ends when honor does. When the women say they know him for a man of honor, Ellison suddenly gets angry. The women whisper and ask why he is offended. Iyaloja, the mother of the marketplace, asks what they did wrong. Ellison asks them if his body looks like a vagrant's. Iyaloja replies that she is confused. The praise singer steps in and warns him gently that when the child is remorseful, the strictest father relents. Ellison points to his ungainly clothing and laughs, and the woman realizes he was joking and needs his rich attire. Iyaloja dances around him, pleased that he forgave them. He is attired in elegant clothing, while the women sing about meeting him in a great market. Ellison, dressed in finery, states that the world is good, and the women tell him they know he will leave it as such. He knows he will follow the Anglican cord of the world to its origin and will find his roots. He glimpses a beautiful girl and stops to ask if he is still in the market he loves and knows. Confused, the praise singer tells him of course he is, and that it is still his voice, not that of some acolytes in heaven. Ellison continues to muse, saying his whole life he has always had whatever he wanted, especially with women. The praise singer replies that no one doubts his reputation. Ellison turns to Iyaloja and asks about the woman he saw, waxing poetic on her beauty. Iyaloja replies that she is betrothed. Ellison is annoyed and wonders why she said that. Quickly, the woman says she did not mean to offend him. She does not see the need to ruin another man's happiness. The woman asks what is going on and realizes that the man the girl is betrothed to is Iyaloja's own son. She decides not to make things difficult for Ellison as he travels to the next world, however, and turns back to him to tell him he will not be burdened as he journeys on. She tells him, "It is good that your last strength be plowed back into the womb that gave you being." Ellison is pleased, chiding her that her eyes were clouded at first. She agrees, but says the fruit of this union will be of both worlds. She then warns him to make sure he goes through with the sacrifice and is a bit quipped. She prepares to leave to get his bridal chamber ready and asks that the same hands will lay your shrouds, to which Ellison asks annoyed if she has to be so blunt. The bride is led in and kneels before Ellison. Summary of Act 2. The district officer, Simon Pilkins, and his wife, Jane Pilkins, are dancing together on the veranda of their bungalow. They are wearing Egugu costumes. One of the native administration policemen, Amusa, comes up, sees what they are wearing, and accidentally turns over a flower pot and is distressed. Pilkins asks what the matter is, and Jane tells him that it is their dress. Pilkins takes off his mask and charges Amusa, asking if he really believes that nonsense. Scared, Amusa replies that the outfit belongs to the cult of the dead. He begs them to take the costumes off, but they refuse as they are going to a ball soon. Jane tells her husband it does not look like Amusa can talk to them like this, but Pilkins, annoyed, says Amusa needs to remember he is a policeman in His Majesty's government, and he orders Amusa to report his business. Amusa stammers, "How can man talk against death to person in uniform of death?" Jane tries to reason with him, asking how he can be scared of the costume, especially as he saw it confiscated from the Egugu men who were causing trouble in town. Amusa, quietly, saying he will arrest the men but not touch the costumes at all. Pilkins is frustrated. He says that when they get like this, there is nothing to be done. They leave the room so Amusa can write on the pad. He then leaves. Pilkins reads what he wrote and tells Jane it seems a prominent chief, Ellison Oba, is going to commit ritual suicide, which is a criminal offense. Pilkins muses that he thought all this was stamped out, but it was always there under the surface. He says it might be rumors, to which Jane replies that she thought she felt Amusa's rumors were unreliable. Jane asks if he ought to talk to Ellison before arresting him, especially as this evidence seems uncorroborated. Pilkins calls in Joseph, his houseboy. He asks Jane about the drums in the distance, if they sound different. He knows the natives always want to make a racket, but it seems uncertainly. Joseph comes in and Pilkins asks him if he is a Christian and if this outfit bothers him. Joseph replies that he is, and in fact, the outfit does not bother him. Pilkins asks him about the chief, and Joseph says the man will not kill himself, but will simply die because it is the custom. Pilkins comments that he often has to clash with that chief and remembers having an issue before. He was helping the chief's son get into medical school in England, which the chief fought passionately. He ended up having to help the boy escape without his father's knowledge. Jane and Joseph tells Pilkins that there is perhaps more going on. If Ellison dies before he can join the king, Olunde, the son, will have to take his place. Pilkins says, "It is no wonder the son left, but concedes he does not know if Olunde knew that." Jane responds that the natives are very private, but Pilkins snaps that they are always willing to blunt out their secret. Jane muses, "Do they really give anything away? I mean, anything that really counts?" Pilkin mutters, "Sly devious bastards," and Joseph asks if he can go. Pilkins says he can, and he forgot he was there. Pilkins and Jane argue about using swear words. It grows quiet, but the drum in his head. Joseph comes back, and his master asks him about the sound. Joseph says he is confused because it sounds like the death and the marriage of a great chief. Pilkins offends him by making a joke about holy water, and Jane rebukes him after the boy leaves, saying the new African converts take religion very seriously. Pilkins scoffs that she is ridiculous. The conversation turns back to the chief. Jane says he must be stopped, but he blusters that he does not care about their barbaric customs, and he would be embarrassed if it really was a wedding and he broke it up. Finally, he calls Joseph back, who takes a while to return, claiming he did not hear. Pilkins orders Joseph to take a note to Amusa. He grudgingly apologizes about the holy water comment. Joseph leaves, and Pilkins tells his wife to get her costume ready because they are going to the ball. He adds that his note was meant to arrest Ellison. As they prepare to leave, Pilkins shares that the prince is touring the colonies and will be at the ball later. Jane replies that she now knows why he was so nervous earlier. Pilkins tells her to shut up and come along. She jokes back and they depart. Summary of Act 3. The front of a stall in the marketplace is covered with rich cloth. The women are agitated. Amusa and his two constables have their batons out and try to use them to push past the women who hold firm. The women begin to tease Amusa, calling him a eunuch and telling him to go back to the white man who sent him. Amusa protests that he will come back with weapons and tries to talk over their jeers. The women say their husband and father will prove himself stronger than the white man's government tonight. Iyaloja arrives and Amusa appeals to her. He says he is going to arrest Ellison for criminal intent and that the woman needs to stop obstructing him. Iyaloja replies that this is merely a wedding. Amusa is frustrated with the insults levied at him. Several young girls break through and start threatening Amusa that he no longer knows his mother or the ways of the marketplace. They knock off the men's hats and they begin to pretend to be Englishmen, mimicking their accents, affectations, and sentiments. At the end, one calls out "Sergeant," and Amusa actually snaps out to attention. The girl collapses in hysterics. Amusa is enraged and Iyaloja gently cautions the girls. Finally, Amusa and his men leave, promising to come back. The women and the girls begin dancing and singing. Ellison, wearing only a white wrapper, emerges, holding a white folded velvet glove. He hands it slowly to Iyaloja and says it represents the union of life and the seed of passage. He listens and says it is nearly time to go. The bride also emerges. Ellison says their consummation is not quite done, and she must stay by him until he passes on. He then praises the marketplace. He listens again and hears that the king's dog and the king's horse are being killed before him. His eyes cloud and he smiles faintly. He says his spirit is eager and he is ready. He seems in a state of semi-hypnosis. He asks the mothers to let him dance into his next passage. His own dance now becomes solemn and slow. The praise singer joins him and asks if Ellison can hear his voice. Ellison replies faintly that he can. The praise singer continues to speak to Ellison to make him ready. Ellison says, "I have freed myself of earth, and now it's getting dark. Strange voices guide my feet." He appears in a deeper trance. He and Loja speak of death and its different types. That is, Ellison dies the unknowable death of death. The praise singer tells Ellison he cannot sense his body anymore and that he has gone ahead of the world. Ellison is far into his trance. The praise singer continues to speak to him of the sounds he might hear and the sight of light at the end of the passage. He asks if he sees the dark room and master of life. The praise singer is overcome with emotion. Ellison dances on. Summary of Act 4. At the ball, everyone waits for the prince, who finally enters with his companion. The resident and his partner enter behind. A Viennese waltz is called for. Everyone hopes to be noticed. Even though they are wearing costumes, Pilkins and Jane get their turn and are admired. A footman brings a note to the resident, who grabs Pilkins and takes him aside. He asks about the chief and the marketswomen rioting. He criticizes Pilkins for not knowing about all this in advance. The native police officers approach and the resident is confused, as he thought the English gave them some colorful identifying pieces of clothing. Pilkins says their hats came off in the riots. When Amusa sees Pilkins, he averts his eyes and mumbles about the dead. Exasperated, Pilkins relieves him of his duties for the day. Pilkins prepares to leave. The clock strikes midnight, and Pilkins and Jane look at each other in horror. They wonder if the act was completed. Pilkins and the policeman leave in a hurry. As Jane awaits, the figure of Olunde emerges out of the darkness. He and Jane greet each other. Jane, unrestrained and friendly. Olunde says he came to see her husband. He makes a light quip about her desecrating of an ancestral mark, and she is disappointed he cares about that. Olunde says he is not mad, but he has learned that the English do not respect the things they do not understand. It is uncomfortably quiet for a moment. Jane says she is sorry he did not find his time in England edifying. He corrects her and says he did, and he admires the English for certain things, like their conduct in this war. Jane brings up a certain captain who sacrificed himself for hundreds of other people. She does not seem very condoning, but Olunde admires the man's self-sacrifice. After a moment, Olunde urges her to tell him where he can find her husband. He must talk to him. Jane alludes to what her husband is doing for him and for all black people. Olunde says he knows what is going on. That is, he prepared to come home as soon as he received a cable that the king was dead. He has come home to bury his father. Jane is shocked. Olunde explains that there is no other protection needed for Ellison, besides the honor and veneration of his own people. Jane criticizes him for his feudalistic and barbaric outlook and customs. Olunde responds by gesturing to the ball, a party during wartime. Jane stiffly says it is for therapy. Olunde calls it decadence, but says he admires the white man's ability to survive. By all accounts, white men should have been warred and wiped themselves out, but they know how to survive. They argue over suicide, with Olunde taking the side that this war contains mass suicide. He adds that, at least, Nigerians do not call something what it is not. Eventually, Jane asks him if he will promise to resume his training and become a doctor. Surprised, Olunde says of course he will. Suddenly, the drums change their direction and Olunde announces that his father is dead. Jane screams that he is callous and savage. The resident aide-de-camp rushes over, solicitous to Jane and cruel to Olunde. He threatens Olunde, but Jane calms down and tells him everything is alright. The aide-de-camp has that as soon as natives put a suit on, they think they are high and mighty. He leaves. Jane asks Olunde softly if he can explain how he has this acceptance and peace of his father's death. Olunde kindly replies that he started mourning for his father as soon as he heard the king died. He knew it was his duty and he did not want to dishonor his people. Jane is confused, saying to Olunde that his father disowned him. Olunde says he was stubborn and did not mean it. Jane is calmer now and thanks him. At this moment, Pilkins returns. He urgently asks for Bob, the aide-de-camp. Olunde thanks Pilkins for not interfering. Pilkins looks uncomfortable. He turns to the aide-de-camp when he arrives and starts discussing an old storeroom where slaves were kept before they were shipped away. His manner and words are confused to Jane and Olunde. Olunde wonders if all this fuss can be because his father killed himself. Suddenly, he hears Ellison far off, bellowing like an animal and yelling for the white men not to touch him. Jane tries to pull Olunde away. Ellison is brought in. He stops like a statue in front of his son. Jane cries that they should not hold him like that, and he is released. Ellison collapses before his son. Olunde says coldly, "I have no father, eater of leftovers." He walks away and Ellison crumples. Summary of Act 5. Ellison is chained up in a prison cell. His bride sits mutely outside the cell. Pilkins comes in and observes the prisoner. He muses that Ellison seems fascinated by the moon. Ellison replies to the ghostly one that he is indeed. Pilkins thinks that the night is peaceful, but Ellison counters that it is not. Pilkins shatters the peace forever and destroyed it, not saved Ellison's life. Pilkins retorts that he was doing his duty, but Ellison sees that they have a very different understanding of duty. Ellison ruminates that he is no longer mad at Pilkins and wonders if this is part of some bigger plan. Perhaps Pilkins meant to push the world, of course. What is most tragic is how the roles of father and son are reversed. For Ellison, though he is proud that he truly has a son, he knows Olunde will avenge his shame. Pilkins shrugs and relays Olunde's words that as he cannot judge his father, he cannot despise him. Pilkins also adds that he advised Olunde to return to England. Ellison sighs that this might be best because he lost his father's place of honor. After a moment, Pilkins asks Ellison about the contradiction of his own race, as with the send-off Ellison was receiving. Before the chief can answer, running feet are heard. Pilkins leaves to join Jane. Ellison turns to his bride and speaks of blame. He says he blamed the white man, then his gods, and wants to blame her, but he knows that she was more than a desire of the flesh, and that she was the final gift of the living to their emissary, to the land of the ancestors. Jane and Pilkins return, arguing about her possible interference. It seems Iyaloja is here, and Pilkins is reluctant to let her visit. As Pilkins goes to let her in, Ellison comments that his own wife is silent and Jane is too talkative. Pilkins orders Ellison not to try anything funny, and the chief sighs that there is no point and that his honor is entirely gone. Iyaloja begins to speak angrily to the Cheston chief, becoming more incensed when she sees the bride there. Ellison tries to defend himself, saying she saw what happened when the shadow of the stranger fell upon him and how his power was gone when the iron touched his wrist. Iyaloja speaks only of the betrayal and how he led them on as a leader. She says several times that she came with a burden. She alludes to a reversal of the cycle of their being. Once she stared beyond the lines drawn by Pilkins and is accosted by a guard, Pilkins tells her to better leave. Iyaloja speaks abstrusely, which annoys Pilkins. She tells him she is not there to help him understand and speak more of burden, and asks him to release the king so he can ride homeward by himself. The aide-de-camp runs in and says a group of women and a few men are coming up the hill. Pilkins is worried and frustrated, especially as he thinks Olunde might be involved. Jane says her husband should trust Olunde. He tells Bob to let them in and have Olunde be ready to leave for England. When he comments that he will shoot if they make trouble, Iyaloja sighs. To prevent one death, you will actually make other deaths? Ah, great is the wisdom of the white race. The women come in, carrying a luggage object covered in cloth. They set it down. Ellison begs to be let out because he has a duty to fulfill, but Pilkins refuses. Ellison says he must speak softly and secretly. The praise singer, who is also there, chants words about the journey to come and tells Ellison to whisper to his shadow. The object is revealed as the body of Olunde. Iyaloja says he intervened so honor will not fly away, and the son is now the father. The praise singer criticizes Ellison for sitting on the side while the evil ones push the world off its course. Ellison is fixated on his son. Suddenly, he strangles himself with a chain before anyone can intervene. Iyaloja rebukes the white men for trying to stop him, commenting that he has finally gone on even though it is so late. Pilkins asks if this is what she wanted, and she says no, but he has brought it to be. When Pilkins reaches to close Ellison's eyes, she yells at him to stop treating him like a pauper's carrion, and the bride steps in to do it. Iyaloja and the bride leave. The women sway, and the dirge is louder. The major theme of this book is the theme of the clash of culture. Thanks for watching this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this video.